Welcome to the 14th Zoominar session organized by Nepali academics in America. Today's session, Publishing in Nepal Insights, Innovations, and Impacts, is going to bring a very exciting conversation on the publishing landscape in Nepal. I'm Arati Maliku, Associate Professor at the College of Social Work at The Ohio State University, and currently serving as the Secretary of the NACA Executive Council. I'm also delighted to be your moderator for today's session. For those of you who may be new to NACA, we are an independent, professional, and nonpartisan network that connects Nepali diaspora academics, researchers, educators, and scholars in the US. Our goal is to foster collaboration, support professional growth, and build bridges between research and education in Nepal and beyond. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Kiran Krishna Shrestha, co-founder and team lead of Nepa-laya with us. If you are familiar with Palpasa Café, one of Nepal's most celebrated novels, then you've already encountered Nepalaya's incredible work. Since its first publication in 2005, Nepalaya has played an important role in shaping Nepali literature, publishing over 50 books across various genres: fiction, nonfiction, poetry, travelogue, and more. Many of these works have won the Madan Puraskar, Nepal's most prestigious literary award, and these works have also been translated into multiple languages, including English, Korean, and French. But Nepalaya is more than just a publishing house, it's a movement. And under Mr. Kiran Shrestha's leadership, it has expanded its contribution to music, film, and the arts. He has produced multiple independent documentaries, including the award-winning Bhedako Oon Jasto, In Search of a Song. He has also played a key role in reviving and managing the legendary Nepali band Nepa-laya as its official promoter since 2001, which means 2025 marks 25 years of collaboration with Nepa-laya, which is in itself a significant milestone. Additionally, a huge congratulations to Nepalaya for reaching its 20th year in publishing this year. So thank you for representing Nepali, Mr. Shrestha. I should note, Kiran Dai has graciously agreed that I can call him Dai. So welcome to the NACA Zoominar, Kiran Dai. So
Namaste.
for today's session, first Kiran Dai will give a short presentation. That'll probably take about 25 minutes. After that, we'll dive into an interactive discussion, really talking about opportunities and challenges of publishing in Nepal and beyond. And to our audience, we also want to really hear from you. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat as we go along. And our very own Dr. Sadeep Shrestha has kindly agreed to moderate the chat. And we'll make sure to address your questions towards the end. And so with that, let's get started. Kiran Dai, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arati. So I'll get to my slides, and I think I have 30 minutes to go through it, right?
Sure, about
Yeah.
25 to 30 minutes is
All
fine.
right. So I'll try to do it in 30 minutes, but 25 minutes. Is my screen visible? Okay. Good evening and good morning, good afternoon, as your time zone permits. Uh, Thank you, Arati, for your introduction. In fact, an overwhelming introduction. A bit exaggerated, but I'll accept that. Thank you. Mm, Today, I'll be talking more about publishing in Nepal. And as the topic that was given to me, I'll try to touch upon the insights, innovation, and impact based on my experience and the work that we have done in Nepal through Nepalaya. To the left, you can see the picture that is, in fact, a screenshot of my website, which shows book covers that we have published. So let's start with okay. So I'll start with the Palpasa Cafe story. Let's make it a personal. Palpasa Cafe is very close to us. It is our first publication. The book was written by famous journalist Naren Wagle, and Naren was a friend, so he wanted to publish his book. And since we were already working in music, I first tried to find a publisher for Narayan, but since before 2005, till 2005, publication in Nepal was very traditional. We couldn't find a publisher who was more progressive. So I was obliged to start a new vertical in Nepal and start publishing. So this is the first poster that we made. If you look at the cover, this was probably the first properly designed cover of a Nepali book. That's what people say. And we had a designer design it. This was a poster, so it give, brings back a lot of nostalgic memories to me. So this was put in all the bookstores as a window poster, and we had set our own let's say target for publication because it was our new venture. Uh, when we did a small research in 2005 before publishing this, Nepali books were usually sold for around 100 rupees in Nepal, which was not enough to produce quality books. And the print run would be within 1,000, where 500 would be distributed for free and 500 would be given to a bookstore to sell. The author were not getting anything, mostly. So we set a target of 5,000 for this book, which was already a huge target. And when we launched this book, we, we try to target the new generation audience, the readers. And in 1 month, we sold 5,000. So after that, we thought the Palpasa Cafe had potentials to be taken beyond the Nepali readers. So we had it translated in English. So once we had it translated in English, it opened the door to the international market. So then it got translated into Korean, as Arati already told. It was also translated in French. And then there was a regional language in Sri Lanka, Sinhala, because it was a war novel. It was interesting for the Sri Lankan readers. So it was also translated in Sinhala by a journalist based there. And then a, a playwright converted this a book and adapted it into a play as well. And as time passed, this was, if you look at the two screenshots, one is from the website of Thuprai, which manages Nepali ebooks and audiobooks, and is also an online bookstore in Nepal. Um, we thought that we need to expand the reach of books in Nepal. So we partnered with Thuprai and asked them to develop an ebook platform because Kindle was not accepting um, Nepali text due to various reasons, some security reasons or whatever. So we had Thuprai develop an ebook platform. So now it is Palpasa Cafe is available in ebooks, audiobooks, and also in paperbacks, obviously. And then internationally, since it's very difficult to manage logistics, we thought because of the growing Nepali diaspora, this book needs to be available to everyone. So our technical team from Thupre, they cracked uh, a system through an agent of Amazon, and we were successful in keeping it on Amazon's POD version. So if you are in USA or elsewhere in the world, if you just log in to Amazon and search for Nepa-laya or Palpasa Cafe or Naran Bagle, they'll show you this screen where you can order one copy and then they'll deliver it. And it's quite decently priced. It's about $12 in the US. Okay, so that was our Palpasa Cafe journey. That's how it started. Now let's get into understanding a little bit of publication business, because I was told by the NACA team that our audience today would be wanting to know about publication industry, and also, as most of you are potential authors who wants to be published, I'll just briefly, in the second and third part of my presentation, I will briefly go through the publication business in Nepal in general, and then also get into what it takes to be a writer. If you look at this slide, it's basically um, these are the various mediums of printed documents that you can find. It starts from the first stone tablet. What I call this is from tablet to tablet journey. So from stone tablets, which has been recorded to be as old as 3200 BC, to the first paper printed um, manuscript, to the one printed in on leaves, this is Sanskrit. And then the third ones, these are like ancient. The bottom three are the modern ones, which we have been following. The one to your left was printed on was the first book to be printed on a printing press. It was in 1455, which was on which was printed on a printing press innovated by Gutenberg in Germany. And the first book that was published, which was Bible. And since then, we've been innovating a lot of different way of publishing in various kind of technology, but then it still has remained with books until in 2007, Kindle came out. So that's how ebooks came. And then, but then till then, you needed to buy uh, a reader, a dedicated reader like Kindle to read ebooks. And in 2009, it, the technology came to your palms through phones. And since 2009, we can read books from our phones anywhere, anytime in the world. So uh, let's understand the type of publishers, because you will be encountering many types of publishers. If you broadly categorize publishers, we can consider there are two types of publishers. One is those who publish general books, the other who publish specialized books. So elaborating on those, I have categorized in this table. You can see it in 8 types of things, but I've summarized it in 5 categories. One is general or trade publishing, which is we consider ourselves as general publishers uh, in Nepal, like in internationally, like Penguin, Random House would be general publishers. And the other is scholarly and educational publishers, which publish specialized books, which would be textbooks, which is a huge market. Other is independent and regional publishers. So if you look at us from Nepali perspective, we are general publishers. But if you look at us from an international perspective, we would be regional publishers or independent publishers that publish books in Nepali languages. The fourth one is it's very interesting to understand the concept of vanity publishing or self-publishing. Self-publishing is where you write a book, you spend for everything. Uh, in independent or general books, you don't have to spend everything. Once you give the manuscript, the publisher will pay you royalty and takes care of the printing, so you earn as a writer. But in vanity and self-publishing, you invest. Vanity publisher are those who take publishing contracts and publish do work for you based on your buyback guarantee. So they will say, you want to buy 1,000 copies, we'll print 1,000 copies for you. So you will have to buy all of those. In self-publishing, you don't need a publisher. You do everything on your own. So it's like do it yourself. Yeah, DIY, that's what it's called. And electronic publishing used to be separate, but now it's become a hybrid for every publishers. So without electronic publishing, you cannot survive. So like even we have electronic publishing through Tuprai and also through Amazon. So these are the 5 kind of publishers. So it depends on when you are dealing with publishers, you'll have to identify whom you are dealing with so that you don't get disappointed, because you hear about stories of general publisher parody publishers trying to act like general publishers, and that's where the confusion lies. Okay, so now that I've covered basically on the kind of publishers that you might encounter, uh, let me get into the basics of what you would be expected to do as a writer when you are dealing with a general publishing house. So the picture that you see here is our publication office's wall. So we try to frame all the covers that we have on our office building. So this is uh, next time when you come to Nepal or you are in Nepal, you can visit us so you can actually see this wall. So as a writer, I always, when I meet authors, I try to understand them through what they need and how they are motivated. So I try to categorize them into who they follow, like these three goddesses, as all of you must have identified: Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Durga. It's a very, being a management student, I've been, um, I try to relate management theories to our Eastern philosophy and our culture, so it becomes very easy to understand. I try to relate these three goddesses with the theory of motivation. So I take Saraswati as goddess of affiliation, and Lakshmi as achievement, and Durga as power. This is the actual theory that I'm talking about, which I have compared with the three goddesses. Is This theory is called Maclellan's human motivation theory, and he says people are motivated with one of these three motivators, but then all three of these are present in everyone, but we need to identify which is the main dominant motivator. So if it is whether if you are looking for rewards, then you are motivated with achievement. If you are looking for you are happy getting the job done, it's affiliation. And if you are looking for trying to influence or gain influence, then you are motivated by need of power. So and this theory is also based on another theory, which is called I'm sure most of you know about it. It's called the Maslow's theory of need. So I find this pyramid very interesting because I try to, when I meet authors or writers, I try to identify where they stand so that it becomes easy for me to deal. And when I'm dealing with authors, I always find many authors who are still struggling with their physiological needs, but then they try to, they think their their need is based on the esteem needs because they are looking for prestige and feeling of accomplishment. That's where a lot of contradiction and a lot of problem starts because the author doesn't know what need he or she has, and how what motivates them. So I would not, I'm not trying to judge anyone, but then if you are a if you want to be a writer, then I would suggest you to look into these two theories and try to place yourself genuinely and then decide what you want to do. So, do you want to become a Lakshmi Putra or Saraswati Putra or Durga Putra? Most of the time, we try to portray ourselves as Saraswati Putra, but then we are motivated with Lakshmi. And it's very interesting to see how our state gives priority to these three motivators. If you look at tomorrow is, by the way, Saraswati Puja. So they have even Saraswati Puja, we used to have 1 day holiday during our student times, but now that's taken away. For Lakshmi Puja, they give you 5 days holidays to celebrate achievement. And for Durga Puja or for Dasai, they give you about almost 1 month holiday. So that's what the states are trying to, um, we can relate to what the state prioritizes. It prioritizes the need of power. Okay, now understanding the writing process. So once you know what you are looking for, then you start writing. Then this is a bit complex. So, but then you need to be ready for. I think it's good that you understand the process of the editorial revisions that goes through while you are dealing with the general publisher. If you look at the first um, block here, it says complete manuscript. well, that's done. Most of the writers or authors, they want the complete manuscript to be printed not tomorrow, but they want it to be published yesterday. So they are in a hurry. And a lot of them, when they come in, they don't understand the value of importance of this process, and they want a shortcut to be published. But then it needs a lot of writing. Is about rewriting, reviewing, and rewriting. The more review you can do, and more rewriting you do, it peer review. It is There are several phases of reviews. Like for example, you have a complete manuscript, and then you just let it rest. We tell them to let it rest, edit on your own, and then submit it to us. And then once we get the alpha reading version, then we have it peer reviewed, get feedbacks, and then it's revised again. So there's just look at how many times it's rewritten. It's almost like one, two, three, 4 or 5 times it's rewritten. And by the time it goes into technical, like down here, it's once you reach the proofreading, it's technical. So it's like only proofreading, like looking for grammars, and then it goes to layout, and it goes to publishing. So if you want to become a writer with a general general book publisher, then you will need to keep this in mind. There are there aren't many publishers that follow this process in Nepal, but then we try to do this as much as possible. But internationally, this is in practice. So it's uh, while dealing with writers, I'm always confused with where we should place publishing business. Should it be guided by the need of achievement, affiliation, or power? So what we do is based on uh, the author or the writer's need and motivation. We also change our policy because, for example, we published book with Binod Chaudhary. He obviously didn't want money, but he wanted proper. He wanted that book to be used as a tool to tell his story. So he was more into his need was more guided towards power. There are other people who wants money. There are other people who wants name. So it depends on the author and their needs. And at Nepalaya, I told you about the way we started with Palpasa Café in 2005, and it's been 20 years now. We've published about 50 plus books, but this year we are trying to expand our publication with at least one book in each month, so that we can plan our releases and plan our supply chain properly. So we always believe in you are good as your last product. May it be songs or in publications. So these are our last products. The one that was released recently in 2000 in January uh, was a book on Prithinaran Shah by a historian, acclaimed historian. He is almost authority in Nepal's history, Maestras Panta. Um, and the next book, Nepa-laya, is announced. It's already been distributed to pre-orders, and it started its distribution in the market. So officially, it's getting released on February 5th. And after that, uh, our work will be based on continuity also. So just to share what we are doing in the coming 3 months. So we've started announcing our upcoming arrivals from this month. So in Fagun Sat, we have coincided a book called Sat Sal Ko Katha, and then, in fact, it's a reprint of an old book that was written by an Indian politician, activist in Hindi, which was translated in Nepali. Very relevant book to Nepal's democracy, Sat Sal Ko Democracy. The other book is going to be as a literary service, we publish one poetry book. So this year we are publishing Dinesh Adhikari. The title is Pani Ko Parade. And the next book is we are publishing stories from out of Kathmandu. This is going to be story of Birgans, a very nostalgic memoir of Birgans by Ganesh Prasad. Thank you. Did I do well on time, Arti?
Yes, actually, Arati may have stepped out. Let's just give another minute or so.
Sure.
In the meantime,
Should I stop my slides?
yes, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm making me an impromptu host for now. So Sadeep, you may want to sort of join me in conversation. So we do have some questions that we. Oh, okay. She's back. Okay. All right.
So
Arati, it's
sorry.
we are just in time actually. So let's actually, yeah. mm, Thank you
I'm
so
back.
much. Yep.
Technology
Okay.
can
So
have
over to
its.
you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your patience. I missed the last part, but the analogy of Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Durga with achievement, affiliation, and power as the motivators was very strong. Thank you, Kiran Dai, for that insightful presentation. We have definitely learned a lot already and would love to go further and learn some more into some very key areas. First, the story behind Nepalaya. This name is sort of very interesting. So could you tell us a little more about the name Nepalaya and what inspired it?
Well, when we were coining a word for our company, we were trying different names. We didn't want to pick out something from the dictionary or from a proper noun which already existed. Uh, but Nepalaya has now become like a proper noun, and a lot of people are using it for different purposes. Uh, when we initially started it, it had multiple meanings because one was Nepa would mean Nepalaya in Newari language, in Nepal language. So Nepa and then Laya would mean melody. So since we are working with melody, that could be one meaning. The other is it's Laya. The word Laya came from the last four letters of Himalaya, and then Nepal and Himalaya combined together. And if you look at the hyphen that you see in between, it's like it gives you that Shangri-La feel. So it's like a combination of it was not meant to be so intellectually defined. It just came out. So I'm just trying to make it sound intellectual, but it's not. It's just a simple name.
Thank you. I think that's
Mm,
very meaningful for sure,
thank
combining
you.
all the different, facets of the Nepali culture,
Yeah.
the language of the Himalayas and everything. Um, so let's sort
And
of
and
talk.
and, and in fact, it's very interesting that when we went to register the name, because it
Uh,
was related to Nepal, the people at the company registrar office didn't want to give away this name because they thought it was not proper because they don't allow you to name anything after Nepal. So they thought
uh,
it was not a right way to writing Nepal. But then we got them convinced.
Great. Thank you. That is pretty innovative. So when we think about publishing, right, and publishing for social change, obviously Nepal has been doing very good work in terms of publishing for social change in this
Mhm.
area in particular. How do you think Nepali publishing in general has really shaped literature and contributed to really creating this social awareness?
Well, publishing is always related to the intellectuals because it deals with readers and writers. And writers are influenced with social changes, with social scenarios, whatever goes on in um, in and around their surrounding. So when we started, like Palpasa Cafe was probably the first. What it was credited for was when it was first reviewed in the Foreign Policy magazine by Kunda Dixit. What he had written was Palpasa Cafe was probably the first-hand account of a Nepali story written by a Nepali. So before that, lot of like even if you look at the Royal Massacre, you only end up reading stories by written by Westerners. or if you look at other stories, it was always written by Westerners. So Palpasa Cafe was an original story. So it started as a fiction, which was um, also mentioned by historians, uh, by by uh, categorizing it under historic fiction. But it was a fiction based on the Maoist conflict backdrop, and it was the first. So that's why it was people didn't know what was happening around the country, and it was since Narayan was a journalist, he had to take um, this uh, format of fiction to write the real story because he couldn't write it in non-fiction or in journalist because of a lot of other things. So, and if you look at other things that the publishers in Nepal have done, like we in 2008 we had published a book called People War, which documented all pictures of Nepal's conflict, and we have a genre with stories related to Nepal's conflict. One of our uh, Palpasa Café was our first book that won Madan Puraskar. The second book from our publication that won Madan Puraskar was called Khalangama Hamla. It was a simple diary of a nurse who was working in Jumla and who explains how the situation was there during the time was when she was serving in Jumla. So it was also related to conflict. And the mm, third book that we won Madan Puraskar for was called Ranahar. It was basically a historian again writing a historic fiction because he had this conviction that this was how it was. So it was Ranahar is a is a biographical uh, is basically a biographical count of the last Malla king of Kathmandu. Rana Ranahar is a very contradictory term because the story is about Ranjit Malla, but then actually he lost the war. So that's how the story was named as Ranahar. So there are various kind of stories that we have been writing. There are books that are coming out about history because when we were talking about the last book that we published on Prithvi Narayan Shah was basically the historian tries to address a lot of myth around Prithvi Narayan Shah and tries to verify with historic facts. And when we were talking to him during the release, what he said was, in Nepal, the unfortunate it's unfortunately people who have access to all the documents, historic documents, doesn't have skill to read it. People who have skills to read it doesn't have access to those documents. That's how it goes. So I think publication is playing a big crucial role in addressing the social scenario of the country, trying to document it in various ways.
Thank you. Thank you for so eloquently pointing out the historical precedents and the modern trends. And as we then talk about these modern trends, with so much happening in the publication landscape or the publishing landscape, um, how do you see Nepali publishers really balancing these traditional narratives with modern digital publishing trends or digital transformation?
Well, I would say publishing is like if you look at digital and traditional publishing as mediums on how it is printed or how it is presented, I would just call it mediums only. It's also about the storytelling formats. It's so there are still writers who write in purist forms. There are still writers who write in ways that people understand. For example, I will give you two examples. One is the last book that won Madan Puraskar from an author called Mohan Mainali. It's not ours. It was about the British Nepal war. It was a historic book written in a simple language. So a lot of historians tried to criticize the book of not being a historic book. But he said, no, I'm writing this book as a historian for general public and not for historians. That was his argument. The other book that I would like to mention is um, one book that was written by, I think he's also a member of NACA, Jivan Prasai, which we published, which was called Jivan Jivne Kaida. So it was basically, it's about our the food that we find in our kitchen, but then it's also based on um, the traditional myths surrounding to it. But then Jivanji, being a scientist, he found scientific references to all those things of what the belief that we had that was passed over from generation to generation, and added scientific references to it. And then it was interesting to many people because they could realize that what we have been believing is actually true, even in scientific terms. It depends on how you juggle it up. If you are referring to digital as a medium, then I would just take it as a medium. Like as I told you, explain about the books that we are publishing. We published in forms of we have to publish in all possible mediums because we have to be ready to cater to any kind of audience. May it be people who listen to books, through audiobooks, through people who read on phones, through ebooks, or people who still are in love with paper. So we still need to print books.
Thank you. Dr. Jivan Prashai and Olkatre, they've all been guest speakers
Mm,
on some of these
yes.
NACA Zoominar. So thank you for mentioning them. So again, in terms of these digital publishing and global reach, right? So you've eloquently described the tablet to tablet journey, and
Mhm.
obviously ebooks and digital platforms have opened new doors. And in terms of this global audience, how do you really see digital publishing helping Nepali literature reach a global audience, while at the same time also keeping its cultural authenticity?
So you cannot run away from the digital world, like it or not, because if you say you don't want to deal with smartphones, then you are definitely nowadays, right? So it's like it's become harsh reality for all of us. So we need to keep up with digital technology. And during COVID time, we launched our ebook platform. So since then, we get when we look at our records of from where people are buying and the time they are buying, because you don't need to wait for the brick and mortar stores to open to go and buy books anymore. So they're buying ebooks anytime from anywhere in the world, from Iceland to Japan to from Americas to Southeast Asia, wherever. So it's the main thing is to make it available for when people want to buy it. For Nepali book market, to be very frank, the digital market share has not been used as it is in America because I think culturally I compare the book market, the European book market is more closer to Nepal because culturally we are more similar than American culture. So in America, digital books are making uh, it has greater market share than in the European market. So I think for us in Nepal, it is growing, but it's not at much. But then we need to be ready when people start looking for it. That's why we keep it ready and available.
Thank you. Obviously, we've talked about some of these innovations that has happened in the publishing, in the Nepali publishing industry, and every industry has its own set of challenges. What do you see as some of the biggest hurdles in Nepal's publishing industry? And obviously, you talked about the general publishing, but if there is anything particularly related to academic publishing, that would be very interesting for our audience.
So there are academic publishers, like there are journal publishers. There's Martin Choklari, which does excellent job. There's Social Science Baha, which does excellent job. There used to be Himal Books, which has merged with Social Science Baha now. So they do excellent publications uh, in English. and there are others which do Nepali publications. Like for history, there's a journal called Purnima, which has been publishing historic documents for the last 61 years. So and continuously they have been doing great jobs. One thing is, it's all these publication houses, they have challenges, their own challenges to sustain. That's one thing. Other is, um, they have the other challenge is manpower challenge. They don't have qualified manpower to work with. And for general books, it's nowadays it's because it's sprung out and there are so many publishers which has mushroomed. Uh, it creates a challenge for all of us. Uh, there's an opportunity and challenge for all of us, but I take it as an opportunity because you have to be more careful in standing out. And the best way to be in that line is to be transparent with the authors, be genuine, and look ethical in terms of what kind of things you publish. Like for example, we as general publishers, we would not get into publishing pulp fiction just because it sells. So we have to maintain our own standards. So that way, though many publishers have come out in academic and trade books, uh, trade publishing, uh, all of them have been able to create their own niche and their names. So there are challenges, but then I would take it as also an opportunity to excel. And people who keep on complaining, they will go away anyway. So we will be left. I think we are here to stay. Let's see how long we'll be sustaining ourselves.
Great. I'm very inspired by this commitment to sort of turning these challenges into opportunities. So you mentioned the financial sustainability. Um, what kind of financial models really sustain book publishing, particularly in Nepal?
Well, it's if you look at books, films, or music, what you need to understand is the chances of being successful is very small. It's almost like acceptance rate in good universities. In fact, even tougher than that. So being a successful writer would be tougher than getting yourself into Harvard or Ivy League college. I'll just link it up with few examples. Even in a huge country like America, there are what 5 publishers who dominate the market. If you look at, if you just Google big 5 publishers, you'll get it. There were 6, and since Random House and Penguin they merged together, they became one. And there was another publisher which wanted to merge with them, but then the American, I think the Monopoly Act or something, they didn't allow it to happen. So that's how it is in the States. So just imagine how many books there might be, how many books comes out every day in the market. We will not, it might be quite surprising to see number of, to realize number of books that comes out in the market in a year or in a month or in a, or even in a day. While I was talking to the publisher from Penguin India, I was quite surprised to hear that Penguin India releases more book in a year than the number of working days they have. So they have about, just imagine that it's more than one book coming out every day. So they would not be able to market everything, and they're just taking chances that at least one of the books or in a month, or 2 books in a month would do well and proceed. If you look at it from um, from the film industry perspective, just imagine how many films gets released in Hollywood or in Bollywood every year. I would say my random guess would be around 1,000 films in a year. And how many films do we get to know about? How many films do we notice? So it's the same with authors and books. It's a very tough game, but then it's worth taking it. It's basically if you want to be a writer, then you have to be ready for you cannot aspire success in one go. It's a journey with a lot of many unsuccessful attempts, as in any other creative field.
Thank you. So in terms of writing and support for writers, right? Like what kind of support exists for writers? Especially if you can shed a little light in terms of support that exists for writers in academic publishing.
Well, I'm not quite familiar with academic publishing. I think academic publishing works on grants. I'm not quite aware of how it works. But in general book writing, there are fellowships. There are writers fellowship that go around where you get fellowship to spend time somewhere, or writers retreats. Those kind of things exist. But monetary, I'm not quite aware because there are once you are it's again a what comes first. Once you become popular, then the publisher would invest on your second book. But till you are popular, then you have to invest on your first on your book. Like you must have read about J.K. Rowling's story of how she wrote Harry Potter's with um, without even heating system in a room. So that's how writers should. I think writers should read all these stories of how people become successful and the hardship of other writers, and take it as a motivator. And once you are popular, then you are then people will come after you. But till then, it's a difficult line. But then I'll just link it up with um, the grants that are available for writing. I think there are several countries which give you grant to do translations, not original writing. So if you are, I am aware of at least few countries. I'll give you one example. I'm sure it is applicable in other countries also. Like in Germany, I found out that if you want to translate any book in German language, and if you have a publisher willing to publish it, who is based in Germany or Switzerland, then there is a government fund that gives you grant as an employment to translate the book. So those kind of as a writer, you should look for grants that gives you money to sustain yourself. It will not be used, but then I think it'll be enough to sustain uh, if you can fish it well.
Thank you. I see a lot of questions from the audience. Keep those questions coming, everyone. So in terms of, this market expansion, right? We're just wondering, especially in terms of expanding this Nepal's publishing industry, both locally, globally, how can authors and publishers and institutions really work together to expand Nepal's publishing industry, both locally and globally?
Well, it's I've been always advocating about working in harmony because I think publication industry doesn't have competitors. That publishers should not be treating each other as competitors, because what I believe in is we should be more focused on retaining our authors than competing with other publishers. So, or stealing others' authors. So it's basically you as a reader. Would you only read one writer's book? No, you would not. Would you only read one publisher's book? No, you would not. Probably, if you look at your rack, you will find 15 different publishers and 20 different writers, and you have read them all. So it's basically a book doesn't compete with other books. Good books don't compete with good books. Like once you have, if you have, depending upon your choice, you would always find you will always find money in your pocket to buy more books when they are when they come out. So it's the best way is to work in harmony and uh, work in harmony to build the industry. In Nepal, publication industry is yet to reach the level where we can say it is an industry. It is still uh, small, and we still need to develop it uh, along with other publishers, with authors. Authors need to come together, publishers need to come together, and all the stakeholders in the industry need to come together to build it as an industry. But then, unfortunately, till you don't understand the value of the industry, then you only care about your own existence. Then the industry is not made. So, but then there are like-minded people who we work with who are trying to make it into an industry.
Thank you. So in terms of these copyright and pricing models, we're just wondering, how do international copyright agreements really impact Nepali publishing? And if these pricing models really differ for books sold in Nepal versus internationally, would you be able to shed some light on that?
Well, that is more to do with supply chain. I think in Nepal also, majority of the book that is sold in Nepal is imported. So Nepali books that are published in Nepal is comparatively less than the entire number of books that is sold. Uh, in Nepal, most of the book comes via India because all the international publishers have their offices in India, which takes care of the South Asian market. And they have their printed price, which based on that, the Nepali booksellers sell the book at the same price or at a discounted price. And talking about copyright, it's one very alarming thing that is happening in this part of the world is that that we need to be very careful about is the number of pirated book that's coming out in the market. There is that has become an issue. Uh, like in Nepal, people don't have a concept of piracy or copyright infringement. Uh, while take it as a joke, what I say is probably Nepal's Copyright Act was typed in a pirated software. So we don't have sense of what copyright is. It's for me, it's I only care about my product and it needs to be protected, but I don't care about other products. So that's how it is. And there are many books. If you go to a Nepali bookstore or Nepali book fair, you will find translated Nepali books, uh, which is based on Bill Clinton's biography or Obama's biography. It's all translated in Nepali. And then obviously it is not an authorized translation, so they don't have permission to do it. But then the ignorance is, if you look at the back page, the back cover, you will see the translator's name with a photograph saying, is proudly saying, I translated this. So that is how I uh, even the writers who has the quality of ability to translate the book are not aware of copyright infringement. But we as publishers, we are trying to keep it up, adhere to all the copyright act that is applicable. Like for example, we have been publishing few books that has been published internationally. Like Annie Choing's biography was published first by a French publisher. So we got the rights to translate it into Nepali. So we officially did it into Nepali. Like Prajwal Parajuli's two books, which was published internationally. One was The Gorkha's Daughter, and the other was Land Where I Flee. We got official translation rights into Nepali, and we translated the books and we released in the market. So it's basically, we cannot talk about others, but we have been very careful with compliance of copyright acts, which is applicable. But then I cannot say everyone is doing it.
Thank you. And before we move into the audience questions, I was just interested to hear what advice you would have for emerging writers and publishers who really want to contribute to Nepal's literary landscape.
I think I'll have to redo my slides again. So it's basically, if you want to be a writer, like I cannot, it's very difficult to be a writer. It's a difficult journey. So that journey needs to be understood well. It's not, there's no shortcut to fame in writing. There are failures and there are successes. But then you need to be able to, the trick is to find a good editor, which is very difficult because even editors would not want to work with first timers. So it's very difficult to find a good editor and to find a responsible publisher, ethical publisher. So you need to be again, you need to understand where do you stand in that motivation uh, chart that I showed you. So you need to be clear of what you want and then start looking for um, the way forward.
Thank you so much, Kiran Dai. And a lot of burning questions from the audience. So we are now going to take a few minutes to take questions for the audience. Let's see what's coming here. A lot of very interesting questions. Our first question is from Dr. Dinesh Paudel. He's asking, do you think Nepal has a good market for publishing in Nepali in the era of TikTok and Facebook? He further adds, reading culture is going down substantially and it has huge impacts on Nepali leadership and also like all over the world.
It is, I think is rightly said. Reading culture is going away, but it will not completely go away. So we will have to find different. The challenge is if we think printed books are the ultimate medium, then we might be outdated soon. So we will have to find innovative ways of getting into the reader circle. That's why we want to have a strong presence in the ebook market and the audiobook market. So we we have a digital marketing team we have now started to work in attracting the younger people by influencing them or informing them at least of several books. One way of looking at it is if you look at it from depends on how you want to look at it, from an optimistic way or a pessimistic way. One way is to look at people getting away from reading. The other way to look at it is the the, the rise in literacy rate that we are getting. So it depends on how we look at it. I'm quite positive because for a book, it might be surprising for you. I was when I'm talking with even other publishers, let's say in India or in Nepal, or even in the States or in the UK, if you if you sell 10,000 copies of your book, you are considered as a successful writer. So in Nepal, if we can sell 10,000 copies of a book, then we are already good for this market. Not even even internationally, like when I was going around meeting publishers, trying to get Palpasa Café published in reprinted in India for the Indian market. That was about 10 years, 15 years ago. We had already sold 30,000 copies of Palpasa Café in Nepal. So that figure was very surprising for them. It was only, so I was quite surprised to hear that it was surprising for a market like India also. So if you look at, um, we have our marketing team at Nepal is now working towards developing a minimum market of, let's say, if we can secure a market of 5,000 copies per title we publish, it is not a huge task. That would it would then make writing rewarding for the writers also. So we are working on it, but I'm not. I'm quite hopeful that we can still make it.
Thank you for that. We have a next question from Bijesh Mishra. He's asking, what is or are the barriers for publishing more than one book per month?
Well, it's barrier-wise. It's again, you need a team to work with. It's main thing is investment, the fixed cost that occurs while committing to publish more books. So our average has been in 20 years we have published 60 books. So our average has been three books. So we are already now multiplying it by three folds or four folds and trying. It's quite ambitious to say that we'll be publishing a book in a month. And we've been able to say that this year because since last year in 2004, since 2004 we have a permanent in-house editor, the editor and writer who is working on our behalf for curating the books. So in 1 year, our editor has been able to bring up a catalog for the coming year. Otherwise, in Nepal, most of the publication house rely on part-time editors who work somewhere else and edit part-time. So that way, the delivery is not frequent. So we realized that was a bottleneck that was for the publishing plan that we had. So we hired a full-time editor. So and in 1 year, uh, finally he's ready with a 1 year's calendar. So probably he's already working for. We already sent the three books that we have shown you as our upcoming books to the press. So he's working to now is February, so February, March, April, May, June. So our editor is now working for July release or August release. So that's how we are trying to streamline our publication. So there are barriers. Main barrier is cost and benefit.
Thank you. Our next question is from
I hope I answered Vijay's question.
Yeah, please feel free to put your follow-up questions. I'll make sure to sort of scroll through the chat and make sure I get to all the questions if we have time. So our next question is from Dr. Uday Wagle, who's asking about quality assurance process for educational, scholarly, and even other general reference books. So he's asking, how do you make sure as a publisher that what you publish is acceptable in the professional community?
Well, I take it in a very relative way. It depends on what is acceptable. Uh, is a is a very relative question. But the way we do it is we have a we try to we cannot assure that we are perfect, but then we try to maintain um, the correctness and the authenticity of what we do through layers of editorial reviews. So we have peer reviewers, like we we have a system at Nepa-laya of having all our past authors as our honorary editorial board members. So whenever we get a manuscript, we are working on a manuscript um, on a subject where we have already published through another author. We try to get their help for peer reviewing and for getting feedbacks. So from whatever available resources we we can generate, we try to make it as uh, it accurate as possible, quality wise, content wise, and acceptance wise. We haven't faced many complaints on that front. So, but we'll have to not. It's never enough. So we try to keep our commitment to give whatever we publish is accepted.
Thank you. Our next question is regarding values and contents from Narayan Dakal. He's asking, what kind of values and contents do you think the world should read about Nepal?
It's a very intangible question, and it's very difficult to answer.
I know, and we
Um,
had a long conversation on this one. So
yes, it's very intangible. It depends on perspectives. It depends on what you want to read, what I want to read, what I want others to read. So it's basically, I think uh, Nepal has been the stories of Nepal has been told with a foreign eye for a long time. Even the first history book of Nepal was written by a British historian or governor. So a lot of historic reference is based on that book. So when I was talking to Maestras Panta when we were traveling to Nuwakot, we just published. He's 81 years old, by the way, and he wanted to visit Nuwakot. So we said, let's go for a drive. So we went there last Saturday, and throughout while we were driving, we were talking to him. He's a very interesting guy, and his concern was his challenge was he has taken up the challenge of telling actual facts based on Nepali perspective to the world in terms of history than quoting foreign historians while teaching Nepalese about their own history. So that's one way of looking at it. It's a challenge, Narenji, but I think all of us need to do our parts in telling the right stories about Nepal. It's just because poverty sells. If we want to sell poverty, nobody can stop anyone from doing it. But then I think there are other good things from Nepal that still need to be told, and there are plenty of stories that can be told to the world. So for that, not one publishing house or one person or one author can do it. I think all of us need to play our parts.
thank you. We've answered that question very eloquently. Thank you, Dai. We have another question from Dr. Ganyopani, and he's asking if anyone is interested in publishing their books through Nepalaya, what are the first steps, and do you need a proposal for that?
Yes, this is very simple. We have a place to drop your manuscript or your idea on our website. That's the best way to do it. Or you can send it by email to our email address. Our email address is there in our website. Our website is publicationnepalaya.com. And our email address is publication@nepalaya.com.np. So you can drop it there or go to our website and drop it there.
Thank you. Next question is from Dr. Neelam Paudel. And he's saying, thank you for your insightful presentation. Are there any extra permit or approvals involved for writers that are foreign nationals?
Mm, I don't think so. I'm not that I'm aware of. It is publishing is not is is not controlled. So it used to be controlled during Panchayata before that, but now it's democratic. So it's like whatever is. We have published international writers. We have published a book by an um, ex-Indian ambassador on Kailas. So we didn't have to take permission from anyone. So we haven't been stopped uh, by anyone. So I don't think so.
Awesome. Thank you for that. This question is not in the chat, but this question is from the team, the Programs and Events Committee, on, again, following up on ebooks and digital publishing. And the team is interested to know about opportunities that exist for Nepali publishers in the digital space. And I know you sort of talked about, how Nepal has engaged with ebook platforms, but what do you think are some of these opportunities that exist for Nepali publishers in the digital space?
Can you come with the question again?
Sure. What
I was reading questions here, so I got diverted. Sorry.
No problem. What opportunities exist for Nepali publishers in the digital space? And how has Nepalaya engaged with
Well,
e-book
no,
platforms?
digital. I think digital space is an infinite space. So if you it helps you excel because it's digital with digital uh, the market you have it's an infinite market. Reach is infinite with um, than when we used to rely on physical books only. So I think a lot of publishers need to utilize that digital platform more. And I think people in the diaspora has a role to play as well because, like for example, we as publishers have put all our books on the digital platforms, and digital platform runs an algorithm. That's everyone knows about it. So even like let's say, for example, we have put all our books on Amazon, and it's available on print on demand. So once the demand for Nepali books starts generating more, then Nepali authors and publishers will have better bargaining power with Amazon or with international platforms and platforms. So it's also about how much we can utilize it. If it is unutilized, then the algorithm will just uh, shadow all our efforts. Like while talking about the print on demand facility, when we published Kulchandra Gautam's biography, it's called The Global Citizen from Gulmi. It's in English, and the Nepali version is called Kulchandra Gautam in Nepali. So it's a very interesting memoir of his story from when he was when from how he got out of Gulmi to Kathmandu and then to Dartmouth College, and so it's his how we got into UN. So it's a very interesting success story. Kulchandra Gautam, I'm sure most of us know about him. He retired as an Assistant Secretary General from the United Nations. So his when we released his book, it was we sold a lot of books on Amazon because his colleagues in the UN from all over the world were buying it. So if that momentum takes up with other books, then probably Amazon will also start taking us seriously. So it's again we all need to play our part as if we need to promote our literature internationally.
Thank you. And that also thank you for that little nudge to the diaspora academics and scholars and writers and everyone. We do have a follow-up question from Bijesh Mishra, who is
Yeah.
asking why Nepali digital platform is not attracting South Asian readers. Some of the Indian startups are attracting even readers and users from the Western world.
Mm, well, it used to the problem with Nepali digital platforms and Nepali e-market was our payment gateway was not available, but recently it has been available. So I think we still have payment barriers with India or other places. With India, we can Nepalese. It is difficult for Nepalese to go into Indian platforms and pay to Nepali cards, but I think it's been being worked out. Uh, there is uh, Phone Pay and there are other platform called Beam Pay. The payment barrier is there, and shipment wise, also there is issues with high charges of couriers because when you log in from Nepal to Amazon, it goes into Amazon India because that's the closest place where we can find products. So the shipment charge is so high that it doesn't make sense, and vice versa. It doesn't probably make sense to go from to send things from there. So the supply chain needs to be worked out. And if you look at Nepali diaspora in India or Nepali speaking community in India, it's huge. It's quite big. If you look at the Nepali speaking community in the northeast of India, from Darjeeling to Assam to Nagaland, and even to Burma to it's a huge community, but we haven't been able to tap that market because of supply chain issues and logistics.
Thank you. The next question is from Dr. Milan Shasta. He's asking, what are some of your most memorable moments of publishing Nepali writers, say other than Narayan Wagle's Palpasa Café? Also, what's it about Nepathya that your partnership is working so well? So there's sort of like two parts to this question.
Mm. Well, the first one is with publishing, every book is a new experience. I saw Zivanji also in attending this uh, talk. So he has first-hand account of how we work as publishers, and there has been many publishers, many writers that we work with. Like for example, the last one that we worked with was, as I told you, Maestras Panta, a historian who has been publishing books on his own, who has been editing a historic journal for 61 years continuously. So he knows what publishing is. But then when we try to what we try to do is we don't try to influence the content of the book, but we try to make it better. And when I talk with authors, when we talk with authors, we always say the discussion henceforth is for betterment of the book. Don't take it personally. That's how we proceed. So it becomes challenging. We come across authors who are reputed authors who doesn't want to edit even a comma or a full stop in their manuscript, and then at the end they start accepting why it's it needs to go through the process. So that process is challenging as well. Working with variety of people, like when we first meet people, like when we were working with Vinod Chaudhary and we assigned a writer to write a book for him, it sometimes it becomes like when you are working with Rupa Kotwal, who was just out as a army chief. It is also a intimidating situation initially, but then we gel up so well that we end up coming out with good books. So it has been meeting many people, many different kind of people, and then but what we um, till we maintain our professionalism, we co-work and co-create good books. Once when the author doesn't accept that, then it affects the product. So we have seen that. So we try to maintain our professionalism. That's one part. The other part about Nepatya is, well, it's an interesting. It may sound like I'm promoting our latest book, but then if you read Nepatya's biography that is just out in the market, then you'll get the answer in a long form. But in short, what I say is, again, with Nepatya, my role with Nepatya is to manage Nepatya, and Amrit's role is to create. So we don't cross each other lines till we are asked to. Like when I'm asked to contribute or contribute feedback in his creative parts as to review it, I do. Otherwise, I don't. So similarly, we don't interfere in each other's role. So I think that is how it works. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Bilon Kambu, and he's asking, can you comment on the cost of writing an autobiography?
Um, if you recall one of the slides that I've put, it's nowadays it's like writing is if you write your own autobiography, there's no cost because you need to write it. But if you need to assign a writer, what we suggest is we connect you with a writer, and then the right if you uh, the writer will charge you is time cost, which is around, I think nowadays for writing an autobiography as a ghostwriter or a collaborative writer, we don't believe in ghostwriting, so we uh, prefer calling it collaborative writing. So that you even in our book with Binod Chaudhary, we have written it. We had a writer assigned, but then we created the writer for collaborating as a as a collaborative writer with Vinod Chaudhary and with the Katwal and with all other books that we have worked with. So cost is very. I think it is not appropriate for me to tell you how much it costs because it depends on the level of writers that you choose to work with. And but what I suggest is, before assigning a ghostwriter to write an autobiography, you should first sell that idea to a publisher and get a publisher approved writer so that your book gets higher chance to get published. Otherwise, we have thrown away auto lot of autobiographies. We have rejected a lot of autobiographies which is written by ghostwriters, and by charging X amount and use amounts, but it's a waste. So the process restarts again when it comes to us. So the best, if you want to assign an autobiography or biography project to any writer, you should first contact a publisher, get the interest on board, and then ask the publisher for an publisher approved writer, so that the chances of you getting published is higher.
Thank you. I think we got to all the questions from the audience, and seems like we can take one more question if anybody has a question. If not, I'm going to ask a question. You sort of gave a nudge to the Nepali diaspora in terms of contributing to the Nepali publishing landscape, telling the stories of Nepal from our own eyes, right? I was just interested to see what advice or words of encouragement you might have to Nepali academics in terms of publishing and contributing to this publishing landscape.
I think all of you have an author in you. It's academic writing and general writing is two different things, because academic writing is for a niche readers. It's like if you write for journals, or if you write uh, for uh, for textbooks or reference books, that's a different thing. But I think nowadays it's every people are more open to us reading different kinds of stories. So your experience depends on how well you can share your experience or the knowledge that you have in a in general language. We have, because we read about people from wide range of professions. We read about, like for example, if you look at books by the Sapiens series, it's quite technical, but still made for general readers. So that would be an example. Uh, if you uh, if you read about people, it's written in simple language. There are many books that we can refer to. So I would tell you to uh, start writing your own book in a simple way that people can understand. Academic is one part, but then all academic people have a general writer in you. And I would again point out to Jeevan Prasad in that reference.
Thank you. That was very insightful. We are right on time. I think we did extremely well in terms of the time. So as we wrap up, on behalf of NACA, I want to extend a huge thank you to Kiran Dai for such a thoughtful and inspiring conversation. Thank you to our audience who had all these insightful questions as well that definitely contributed to this lively discussion. I'd also like to thank all the members of the Programs and Events Committee, led by our very own Dr. Sadeep Shrestha, for organizing the session today. And before we go, everyone, a few exciting announcements. Our next NACA event, Meet the Scientist, is coming up in March. It's going to be a panel discussion with academics exploring the evolving landscape of scientific research, particularly as it relates to today's global and political climate, if I may add. So please stay tuned for that. And the NACA Conference 2025, a big event, which is happening from April 11th through the 13th at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. And this year's theme, Bridging Boundaries, Mounting Elevations, navigating the future through cross-disciplinary collaboration really highlights the power of working across disciplines to solve global challenges. And even though abstract submissions have closed, there are still many ways to get involved, whether you're looking to attend, network, or even support the conference through sponsorship. We'd love to have you. And so please go to NACA website for more details. You can also contact any one of us for further information. And with that, I want to thank all of you for joining today's discussion. Remember to keep the conversation going beyond this session. There's a lot to be engaged with. Stay engaged, stay connected, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event and definitely the NACA conference. Take care and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.